In this movie we're going to show you how we changed our dome skin fittings into nice flush skin fittings and fitted them back into the outside of our boat.
So here we've got a couple of skin fittings in the engine room, and in here we had wastewater out from toilet, water in for toilet. We're filling in the water in for the toilet, which is only this far away from water out for the toilet. And those of you who have lived on a boat and flushed a toilet with a inlet that far away from the outlet knows the joy of having the inlet that close to the outlet. And this inlet is going approximately 3-4 meters forward up in the boat, in front of this one, so that we don't have that wonderful recycling issue. Also, with this skin fitting, I am recessing it flat with the bottom of the boat, so that outside it's actually just completely flush. There's no dome head. And to do that, you'll see here I have an extra thickness or a fiberglass washer. This fiberglass washer is the same thickness of the material that I've removed outside to re-strengthen what I've basically ground away outside and transferred back inside, so that there's no reduction in skin thickness. It's all tapered edges and all the rest of it, so as to get no hard points at the edge. So when this is glued down into the hull, there'll be a tiny cove in here, and I'll actually laminate over this whole thing as well. So here we are under the mighty ship, and here is the skin fitting for the toilet outlet, recessed into the hull. So you can just see here where I have ground away a taper into the hull, and the skin fitting now sits recessed. You can see it's now flush with the skin. Now when I glue this in, I actually glass over this area where I've tapered it away to actually bond all the layers back together again, so they can't peel apart very easily. And if you have a look around this side, you can see where I've done all the tapering of the fiberglass to patch up the where the old skin fittings were and flush them off so that they will be non-existent anymore. Okay, so we're going to have a look a little bit closer at what I've done as far as grinding and how the setup works with the tapering. Here, so I've removed the skin fitting. You can start to see where I've tapered into the laminate and recessed approximately the shape of the skin fitting. Now what you can see here, these little white dots, they're actually all the different layers or plies of fiberglass, and because they're all exposed on their end, it's actually, I wouldn't say easy, but it's possible for them to sort of split apart, particularly if someone's inside and gets the skin fitting, knocks the skin fitting, and it rotates like that sort of motion. You end up with quite a torque moment through the hull here, and on one side it wants to push it down, and on the other side it wants to pull it up, and it'll actually want to split these plies apart a bit. So what I'll do is I'll actually put a couple of layers of glass that cap all of this, and I actually do that when I glue this inside plate in, and I actually screw it all together and clamp it in place, and it actually molds and pots itself to the shape of the skin fitting. Here now you can also see the fiberglass backing plate that I've made in there. I showed you before. It's the fiberglass washer, and then you can see the bronze skin fitting. Typically I'd like to use the True Design nylon glass filled skin fittings for this operation, but I don't have them here and I'm on a budget, so I'm not going to replace these ones. Okay, making some templates The glass that will be going over these patches. Really simple. So here is all the patching prepared for skin fitting infills and the recessed poo pipe skin fitting. So here's our skin fitting all taped up and ready with the glass skirts on it. You can see I've actually taped up the flange of the skin fitting so that skin fitting doesn't get stuck in place when I pot it. And you can see I've got 2 layers of 300 gram cloth here. Alright, and one of the things you'll notice is the direction of the fiberglass fibers. So here you'll see I have fiberglass at plus 45, minus 45, and the layer below at 0 and 90. So this gives me fibers in 4 different directions. So it takes loads in all different directions. We use this when we don't quite know exactly where the loads are going, or around holes and things like this. Also, I'm using a woven fabric as opposed to a stitch fabric. This is a stitched fabric where you can see the glass fibers going at one direction and underneath it's going the other direction. It's stitched together. This woven stuff, particularly when it's set inside a resin matrix, or it's glued together with resin, it has a mechanical holding together, and it's quite hard to tear and pull apart compared to a stitch one. You can actually totally 100% reliant on the resin holding the fibers together to stop it from blowing apart, whereas this one is actually mechanically woven together, so it tends to be able to handle a little bit more mechanical abuse as far as if you scratch it, nick it, try and pull against it with something mechanical. It's a little bit better in that application, so that's why I use it for this skin fitting. This is what it looks like after I poos it all in the hole. You can see the excess skirt of fiberglass hanging out past the skin fitting. You can see that I used a bit of Cabosil filler in there as well to make sure that everything was, gaps filled in, so that basically it's all nicely potted in just to the right shape of the skin fitting. On this side, you can see I have also glassed the skin fitting holes in. Trim this off, laminate inside, flow coat it, and then once that's finished, then it'll all get bedded up into Sika and then final wiped with a filler. All nicely trimmed up and flushed off on the outside, looking good. Okay, laminating time. So here I've pre-wet the e-glass cover layer. Quite a wet brew, but it's fine because I've got a few little ups and downs to fill in. I'm happy with a bit of extra skin thickness due to really wet laminate, but this one won't run quite as wet. All squeegee fingers. Perfectly calibrated resin content. The build has had a quick coat of flow coat just to cover up everything and make it look half decent again. A nice surface to now mount the skin fitting to. So I'm about to Sika that in position and go from there.
All done?
All done. Right, now we're going to glue it in the boat. What glue am I putting on?
Silicon. Silicon.
No, urethane.
I've heard that.
Otherwise known as Sikaflex. So,
Very nice.
I've got a bead around the flange, which is going to create the primary sealing face on the underside of the hull. I've also got a bead around the threads here, so that this will actually fill up and seal the shank area. And this is the bit that actually does most of the sealing and keeping the water out. Because if the skin fitting actually expands and contracts, this area here is the least affected by the flanges moving apart and debonding from the skin. So this is the bit that actually is going to most likely seal the skin fitting.
Why, did it
not
leak
the
most
top
of the
and
time?
no, it doesn't leak at all. Rather than top and bottom ones. Top and bottom flanges, the glue seal here is more to accommodate for the undulating surfaces and create sort of the gasket. Now technically I would put this in, screw the flange nut on the back side of it, not too tight, let the outside cure, then I'd get the flange nut, take it off, glue it, and then tighten it tight and essentially have a slightly thicker, thicker glue area that would then be squeezed. But in the case that we've got here, where we're actually flushing it off and we're sealing over things and all the rest in the way that it's all bonded in, we don't need to go that crazy with it. But and put it in the hole. Lots of ooze.
It's gonna come out.
Stop it spinning while I go in and tighten everything up. Oh.
Let's do this thing.
Okay, going on now, Harry. Hello. Here we are back at the skin fitting, and it's had a bog wipe. Now you can see how the skin fitting is flushed off. Come out pretty nice. Get a little sand and look really good. And here's one somewhere I prepared earlier. Oh, I forgot to fill those two holes with my epoxy wiping. Here we go. Here's the waste one on the starboard side. This one came out really sweet, so super happy how that's come out. Well, this is the outlet. On my inlet, for the Watermaker, it's quite handy having these flush skin fittings, particularly with these faster boats, that we don't get as much turbulence and aeration into the inlet for the Watermaker. Quite a problem, as some people will know, if they're trying to make water and their boat is going moderately fast. But for those of you that actually have gone fast and tried to make water, it can be quite a problem. So these flushed off skin fittings are definitely huge bonus in picking up cleaner water to go into your Watermakers and other pump situations.